Okay, so hi guys, this is Gemma from ASD Rocks with Richard Eisenmeyer from the ASD Clinic. And Richard has his PhD in a very specific area, actually, in mind abilities. Is that correct?
Theory of mind.
Theory of mind within the autism spectrum.
Correct.
And he's been working within the autism world here, I think, for 20 odd years for the ASD Clinic.
Yes. We've been here about 12 years, but I've worked at various other places for over 20 years.
Yeah. And working within the autism world for
a long time.
Longer than that.
Yes.
What age can you diagnose from?
We have referrals for 18-month-old babies. We don't see them at 18 months, but as a switched-on mum, you know if you're breastfeeding leaning over because your kid can't be held, you know something is not quite right. So the youngest we'll probably see them is around 2.
I never even put that together until you said that. Do you remember the football hold? Oh my God, it makes sense.
Yeah. So it's you know something's not right when your baby doesn't want to be held very much or breastfeeding.
I used to cry when people handed him back to me.
Yeah. It wasn't your fault. So
Thank you.
that's right.
Thank you.
So,
how early can you do an IQ test and how verbal? Like that's the other thing. Like,
I think the WIPSI starts at about 2.5. I'd never trust an early IQ test. I would never trust the result, but I still might use it because it's a structured activity to do with a stranger. I'm a stranger to the kid, they're a stranger to me, but you need social communication skills. You need to focus, you need to want to please the assessor and try your hardest. And if you're testing a 4-year-old who's a bit like a 2.5-year-old, I wouldn't trust that. So I've seen, kids get scores of 65, enter special school because they've got supposedly an intellectual disability, and at 9 years of age, they've got a score of 110. Their IQ hasn't improved. It's not been early intervention. It's just been, they've been able to do the test. So I trust the scores a lot more at around 10, because if my clients are around 10, they're a bit like an 8-year-old. Most 8-year-olds can sit, focus, listen, try their best. You can reward them with something sometimes, and the result should then be fairly consistent through their life. There's obviously, we've got our characters that are what we call waiting room diagnoses. You can just tell.
So I want to just circle back round to the teaching the parents to fish almost. This idea of, if I teach you, I never have to see your child.
Yeah.
So say I've just got a diagnosis. What do I do? How do I know what to do with my child? Like, okay, I have it. I've just do I stick them into early intervention? What is early intervention? Do I...
So this is a very vexed question, because there are, so typically the earlier the diagnosis, the more obvious the presentation. Okay, so Bo was diagnosed at 2, for goodness sake, so,
And we had to wait the 6 months to get in.
So, all right, so typically, I think all the research says this, the earlier the diagnosis, the more need. So, 2 and 3-year-olds bite, hit, slap, hair pull. Why?
Atypical ones, or are you talking
neurotypical? 2 and 3-year-olds will do all of those things. My kids did all of those things, right? When they wanted things to go their way. That's my dolly punch bash scratch, right? At 3-year-old kinder. That's when you tantrum to get your way.
Okay.
Right. So, because 2 and 3-year-olds are autistic in the sense that they can't, their theory of mind, so their capacity to theorise or guess what's going on in somebody else's head, that button that turns on in your head at around 4 years of age, that hasn't turned on yet when you're 2 and 3. So when you see, but 2-year-olds don't hurt, but a 6-year-old or a 10-year-old who thinks who doesn't have the dance skills yet, doesn't have the, if I please mum and dad, good things are likely to happen. You know, it's very important for a child to grow up thinking that, well, if mum and dad are okay, I'll be okay. So that sort of more mentoring sort of approach is very important.
We had almost the exact opposite. We had Finn starting to copy Bo by doing a lot of these because it was so accepted within our family that Finn started mimicking, and I would have to say, stop it, you don't have autism, you know, you don't need to cover your ears, you don't need to make the noise, you know, but, you know, we had autism is my superpower from 7. I remember when I saw you first that time and I was pregnant, and you said to me, "Get ready to raise twins."
Yes, there's a bit of a delay. That's right.
And I didn't get it, and then I got it when I was raising twins, and then there was that really critical moment when Finn overtook his brother.
From autism diagnosis, there has to be certain issues with social skills, certain problems with the two-wayness of communicating, and the key one where a lot of the anxiety comes from is a sort of a weakness with what you'd call social imagination, being able to imagine or guess very quickly what could be going on in somebody else's head when you see them do stuff, so a social act, or you hear them say stuff. Was that a joke, mucking around, stirring,
sarcasm?
Or your life?
That was something really helpful that you gave me when we were seeing you but not Bo, was that concept or that idea that if you're 6 or 7 and acting 5 or 6, it's not a big deal. But if you're 12 and acting 10, it's a massive difference. But then when you're 40 and acting, right? So that actually helped me as a parent sort of get my head around the concept.
I've diagnosed two people on Wednesday, and they had massive separation anxiety coming out of kinder into prep, and you know, they were 5.5, but in some ways they were, you know, you pluck me out of 3-year-old kinder and put me into prep, I reckon I'd be having panic attacks and not wanting to leave mum as well. So and year 7, so you read any book on autism, there will always be stuff about transition, right? So going from kinder to prep, grade 6 to year 7, year 12 to TAFE and uni to work, you know, because that's sometimes where you'll really, you know, if you pluck me out of grade 5 and put me into my year 7 class, I would have put my pants as well. So, you know, that's to me, you know, if IQ is reasonable, I'll just automatically knock off about 2 years off the child's chronological age to sort of get a feel of, you know, where they are social, emotional, organisation skills, listening skills. But if their IQ is lower, I will knock off other years. So, you know, if they've got 80 IQ points, that might be more like a grade 3, grade 4 kid going into year 7. So that's a huge jump for my eyes and my body posture. All of those signals that most neurotypical kids can pick up. So again, that's why I said earlier, you know, I can parent through my mood and I don't have to bark and yell all the time because, you know, they can plan. They know that if I keep Dad sweet, likely good things you'll say yes more.
Yeah.
If you don't have that set up when you're young, if you can't pick up all of these little things.
Finn had more separation anxiety, protection, you know, carer syndrome, which I tried to rip out of him and, you know, give him his independence as a sibling. Then when he moved over to the same high school as Bo, you know, I really had to punch it in and say, you have to make your own friends. You cannot go and sit with your brother every lunchtime. You know, you have to, this is your first year, this is your first, you know, no kids, you know, no one So it has been a really different journey for us, and I'm learning so much from him that we still haven't gone through with him.
Well, it's a neurodevelopmental condition. So essentially that means that some parts of the brain have overly wired up, most likely at the expense of other parts. Okay, so so when we do an IQ test, for example, we typically see on all these different subtests, you'll see most people on the spectrum do rather well on certain parts, meaning hitting the best parts of their brain, but at the expense of other parts. So we'll see a very sort of peak and trough pattern where a sort of a more neurotypical person will end up with a very even set of skills. The way I conceptualise all of this is that, the hormone years, say grade 5 to year 9, grade 5 to year 9 is what keeps me in business.
Yeah.
Right? Because, hormones start dribbling out at around 10. The cool project starts. The more socially switched on ones recognise the vulnerability, recognise the weakness, recognise the little quirks, and then if you're different and you're 8, bang. But, when you talk about this new term masking, before this term masking, we used to call our girls, we say you've got actress syndrome because they were fantastic actresses and they wouldn't get diagnosed at 8. They might have seen a psychologist or a paediatrician, but they'd get diagnosed at 14, no problem, because all of that masking caused a lot of anxiety and then a big depression, and then somebody goes, maybe she's on the spectrum, and that's when they come. And why weren't you picked up earlier? And the parent will say, well, she used to love going to the doctors and answering the questions, but now she can't go to school because she's so, exhausted and depressed. So, it's tricky. Year 7, though, is a very tough year because you sort of, if you're on the spectrum, there's too much work. If I was in grade 5, could I have done 10 subjects, 8 teachers, 7 different classrooms? No, I couldn't.
It was kind of Bo's porn.
I've got a pharmacist that I see, and I said, my God, your eye contact's fantastic. And she said, yeah, I was pretty poor up until about 16, and I wanted a boyfriend. I realised boys like eye contact, so I started using eye contact, and I've been able to do it ever since then. So she taught herself to do it. Wow. Up until then, she just was very shy and timid and looked down a lot. And she's a perfect actress now. You would never in a million years think she's on the spectrum.
Really? Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much. Thank you so much, because I'm starstruck, awestruck. We all are. If I could have dressed you up in like a traveller outfit with a crystal ball, everything you predicted, everything you said, the food at the age of 10 to sort of, was it 10? Around 10 to start, because I just remember, I was like, he's 10, I need to book him in for the IQ. She just went, great time to start working with his food. And I was like, I'm on it. Right. So, all of these things have just been so beneficial. And having never seen Bo, or never needing to see Bo, I can only pat us both on the back and say, please keep going for all of us.